but God did it for a purpose. I am here today to encourage women and girls to expose your truth. Baby, you don't have to stay there. Open up your mouth and expose it.
Amen. And this generation is a bit different, some a lot bolder. And so it's like there are people coming out with their stories now, but even like the older generation, right? Like there are still some people that are alive that are older than us. And it's like, what could be holding them back? You know how sometimes when you're a child, you don't feel like there's a safe place or a safe person where you can share your truth with, because you're wondering like, you're feeling that shame and that guilt. You're feeling things that you shouldn't feel. You feel like it may be your fault and you don't know that it's not. And so you might feel like you have to hold it. And so as a child, you may not know how to share what happened to you. You may not feel safe. But then when we get in our 30s, in our 40s, in our 50s, in our 60s, in our 70s, like what would be a reason why we would still hold it? Like, does it get to a point where, or could it get to a point where you feel like there's no need to share it at this point? Like what happens, right? Because when you get the courage at 20, 30, 40, or whatever age, and then those people who are still carrying the secrets that have hurt the family, right? And that's not bringing freedom. They're still turning a blind eye to it. Like what would be the reason why, some people will still hold on to it, when it's seemingly maybe safe, or, like what would be some of the reasons?
Yeah. Some people do hold on to it. They just figure it happened. I'm over it, but they aren't. I mean, it's just completely changed their mindset about life, about people. Some people are afraid to share it. Um, there's one book that I'm in, a collaboration, and a lady shared her story about being molested. And when she went to go tell her grandmother got a switch and whooped her. So it's like back, what, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, you weren't allowed to express your feelings, your mind, go sit down somewhere, stay in a child's place. I mean, but we're living in a different day now where people are coming forth and sharing their stories. And, you don't have to hide anymore. You can't come to the forefront and share what has happened to you. Some people do blame themselves, but no one has a right to violate you. They just do not, no matter who they are.
And I think social media, it's a blessing and a curse, but because we have it, you have a forum now. You can hear other people's testimonies. We have that, and we can share our own.
Yes.
And get feedback.
Yes, absolutely.
We have a comment. Go ahead, Apostle.
I had a question about how did this whole situation affect you and your relationship with your mother?
Okay. So when I did tell my mom, because she knew I didn't like her boyfriend, and he knew. All right. So after the incident, I didn't see him for some time. I remember our house catching on fire. We had to move to the other side of town. But then one day he shows up at the house. He's now living with us. So now I'm growing up with this fear and taunting, always looking at me with this crazy smile, pointing his finger like, I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you. He never got me. I never gave him the opportunity. But one day my mom asked me, why don't you like him? And so I'm thinking, as this little now 10-year-old girl, my perfect opportunity to expose it. I told my mom, and that's when she didn't believe me. She was like, child, ain't nothing happened to you. Must have been something you saw on TV. So that day forever really shut my voice. Years went by, got married, have children. I'm staying with my mom at this time. So I decided to have another conversation about what happened to me. And she said, well, I did the best that I could do. Time go by. So now I'm getting ready to write this book. I have to have another conversation with my mom because she's going to be in this book. She's a part of my story. Now, I'm going to put her in the book to try to make her look bad or anything, but it's the truth and it's what happened. So this time I sat at her house at the table and I listened to her story. So, like I said, she was raised on a plantation. She was the oldest child. Her dad didn't like her. He wanted a boy. He treated her like a boy. Just a harsh upbringing. How they even beat the children. He threw an axe at her and broke her big toe wide open, whips on the back. I mean, just a cruel. And of course, she was raped. But I listened to her story. And after she finished, it's like a light bulb went off. I was like, okay, I get it. I understood why she said what she said to me on that day. Not giving her an out, but I understood her mindset as to nothing happened to you compared to what happened to her. Not giving her out at all. But me and my mom, we were good. I've never had any unforgiveness against her. And after the book came out, she got her copy. She read it. A few months went by. She came by my house and she came in and she said, you know what? I missed it. I completely missed it. To me, that was her way of saying, I'm sorry. She didn't say I'm sorry, but she said, I missed it. In other words, I was wrong. So our relationship has been good down through the years. She has gone on home to be with the Lord. And believe it or not, this book came out in April of 2021, and she passed away in November of 2021. So it was like this book meant to come out, and everything that transpired since the book has been published. So we've had a good relationship, the two of us.
Okay, so you're saying from just growing up with your mom, your relationship has always been good since
Yes,
this whole situation. Okay.
yes, yes, yes.
Amen. That's rare. That's why I wanted to see if it actually affected your
Yeah.
relationship, because a lot of times when our parents don't um, receive what we're trying to tell them, we get things in our heart, and it could be anger, it could be
Yeah.
resentment, it could be a lot of things that kind of separate that relationship. But if like that's a blessing to actually still be able to hold on to a relationship with her after that. So,
Yes, yes. I mean, I never had any anger or unforgiveness towards her, but now it was a different story when it came to her boyfriend. But yeah, we were good.
And I think that that's a good place to address Alicia's comment. She says, I do believe that the enemy is watching the parents and will seek out the children very young, especially when the child is being neglected.
Mm.
Absolutely. That is so true. Because my mom, she worked 2 jobs, so she wasn't home. So perfect opportunity for the enemy to come on right on in. Yeah.
That was good, Alicia. Thank you for that comment. Wow.
and I wanted to say something. So that makes sense, because she said that she did the best that she can do. So she kind of took the blame for what happened to you as a child, and that it was her fault. And so opening up that door, working, not being there, and so
Yeah. Yeah, she did.
And Elder Ivy, you talked about your mom working 2 jobs, and you said that you and your sister were holding down the house. Now, did your sister know what happened to you? Did you confide in your sister? Did you talk to, did you talk to her about what was going on to you?
Nope, I did not say anything to anyone.
Okay. Yeah.
And when trauma does happen to a child, it's like you really don't have the vocabulary for it because you're just traumatized, you know. And I would like to ask parents to pay attention to their children. If your child is outgoing and now all of a sudden they're withdrawn, they seem sad, depressed, or angry, it's time to check in. Now, if your child is normally quiet and now they're like lashing out, check in. There's something going on. Something has happened.
And I like how you said too in your book, you said that trauma is often labeled as bad behavior.
Mm, yes. We could look at our school systems, there's a special room for the bad kids, right? Why are they acting out? Why are they lashing out? Something has happened. They're not just bad. I mean, some of them are, but take a look, ask those questions. Are you okay? Did something happen to you? Better yet, have that question about the unsafe touches. All right. Has someone touched you inappropriately? Is someone bullying you? I mean, you parents, you got to check in and you got to wake up because the enemy is not playing.
Yeah.
And I think that's you're gonna say something, Prophet Chris? I think that's interesting too, because we could readily recognize when the child is engaging in bad behavior. But what about those who are now adults and never dealt with the abuse? What kind of behavior is like a telltale sign that you're still hurting, you're still wounded, you need healing, right? And so we may not label it bad behavior as an adult, but what about those bad attitudes, right? The self-sabotaging behaviors, in relationships, tearing things down with your own hands, not being able to have healthy relationships. What behaviors, what is showing or, giving signs that you need healing, right?
Yeah. Alcoholism, drug addiction. You just can't deal with it. You can't cope. Just too afraid to go back to that painful place and expose it. Not even being able to have a conversation. You're yelling, you're screaming, you're just mad all of the time. So there are telltale signs that something has happened somewhere.
Yeah. Agreed. Well, we have a comment in the chat from Darlene. She was saying how communication is so important. Communication is important.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming you're talking about between the child and the parent, the conversations that need to be.
Yeah, that is so important. A couple of years ago, I saw a news report where this little boy on the school bus, he was sodomized by an older child on the back of the school bus.
Mm.
He didn't say anything, but his behavior was different. And what does his mom do? She punishes him, not knowing that her son has been traumatized. Come to find out, there was a video on the bus. The school knew, didn't say anything. So it's so important to have these open conversations with your child, not to keep secrets. And parents, some parents just don't know how to handle it. So they'll start yelling at them, lashing at them. Don't be mad at your child. That's one reason why they're not going to come and talk to you, because you're going to get mad at them. You're going to yell at them. You may even beat them, give them a spanking. And they're trying to tell you what's going on, but you're not listening. So communication is key.
Amen. Amen. Be watchful. And so we're going to take a quick break and come back, and we're going to tackle the question, how keeping family secrets hide the enemy in our homes. So we'll be right back after this.
The Strategy Room brings to you the Dream Series. There is a realm where you have ears to hear and eyes to see. For God may speak in one way or in another, yet man does not perceive it. In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falls upon men, while slumbering on their beds, then he opens the ears of men and seals their instruction. Get ready and join us as we discuss the hidden secrets of dreams, coming up in the strategy room. Share your dreams with the panel.
Welcome back,
Yes,
everyone.
welcome back, Elder. Yes. So, Elder Caldwell, you said that. So, can you discuss more and tell us how does hiding or keeping family secrets, how does that hide the enemy in our home?
Yes, yes, yes. We actually have just covenant with the enemy when we don't expose it. We know what's going on, but everybody's shh, 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 don't say anything. I mean, I can share about my family. As I've said, incest is in my family. We have this one uncle who molested uh, his niece. And come to find out years later, because nobody said anything, he's actually molested several nieces. Why would a grown man want to watch little girls? Because you want to go out, hang out, and party, right? Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
That is how the enemy is hiding and lurking in the home. You want to go out, go ahead and go out. All right. But the enemy is lurking, just waiting for the opportunity to violate your babies.
Mm-hmm.
So, parents, once again, be watchful and be mindful. I did not allow my boys to spend the night over anyone's house, family or not, because I knew, what happened to me. I did not want that to happen to them. And they used to get so mad at me. They want to go spend the night over their friend's house. But I could care less how mad they got. But then when I wrote my book, sharing what happened to me and tell them about the book, and that's why I didn't let them go anywhere. So as adult men now, they can say, Mom, I thank you, for protecting us. That's our job, to protect our children.
Mm-hmm. And also, I like the fact that you stated, like you said, that's why it's important for parents to watch their children, And you also said that sometimes you will have your friends over, and he always wanted to play with your girlfriends, and and the parents, I don't, you said, he may not have done anything to them, but it was just kind of weird, a grown man wanting to play with you and your
Right.
girlfriends, your
Yeah.
young friends.
Yeah. That was very, very weird. I can remember my house being the house that the kids would come to, or they would either play in the yard or we would be in the house. We had like a game room in the basement.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Pay attention, parents. A game room, got the pinball machine, the pool table, what's that? The ping pong table. And we're down in the basement playing. And here he comes. He's watching, he's lurking. So be mindful of why grown men want to be down there with your daughters, or grown women want to be around your boys.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing, I'm sorry. Don't make your children hug anyone or kiss anyone. If they aren't comfortable with it, why do you want to make them do that? Be mindful of letting your girl sit on a man's lap. Just be mindful. Especially if you know there's drinking going around and drugging going around. Be mindful.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I just want to ask a question from a male's perspective. Do you think there's a big difference in the dynamic and what it takes for a young boy to come out and tell his parents about what's going on with him? You think it's harder for a young boy to do that than a little girl? Because what society teaches us as men, a lot of us suffer in silence because we're taught to be.
Right, right. Right. Absolutely. I mean, it's difficult on both sides, but for the boy, you may have that stigma of being a homosexual, and you don't want to be seen as that. Um, and on the extreme side of that, you may start to see changes in your son. That something has happened to him because he's acting more feminine. Sometimes, as moms, we can have a bad habit of allowing our sons to carry our purses because they're heavy. Don't do that. You're conditioning your son to take on female characteristics. That's your purse, you carry it or get a smaller one. So, I mean, it is difficult for boys and it's difficult for girls. I mean, it's just a topic that no one wants to talk about, and we need to.
And I'm glad you brought that up too, because back in the day, it may be seen as chivalrous and teaching a man or little boys how to be gentlemen. But the age that we're living in today, that is something to be careful and mindful of, right? It
Yeah.
seems like something so small, like teach you how to be a gentleman, but it's like, no, you don't need to be hurting my purse. Like
Right.
little things that we got to be mindful of because of what is being put in front of our children, by mainstream media.
Mhm.
What's being accepted even in our school systems.
Yeah.
It's those little things.
Hmm.
It's like we don't want to contribute to them, right? And
Right.
so, wow, that was good to bring
Yeah.
up.
Yes, absolutely. What are you supposed to do? Open the door for you, right? That's being chivalrous. Or bring the groceries in. All right.
Mhm.
Help mom out that way. Take the garbage out, but don't carry her purse. And if you are a single mom, make sure you get some positive role models in your son's life. All right. But make sure you do that background check. You got to check them out now.
Right.
Yeah, because a mom can't give a son what a father can, and a father cannot give a child what a mother can. So you need those role models.
Amen.
Amen. So we're going to go to our next question.
Ooh. What lies have I believed about myself?
Yes,
There were
ma'am.
so many. So after the incident, all right, so I grew up with low self-esteem. I didn't like who I was. I thought I was ugly. That's a lie. I hated my name, Ivy, because I was picked at. I was bullied. They called me Poison Ivy, Ivory Soap, dishwasher liquid. The kids were just mean and terrible to me. So during those teenage years, you're trying to find yourself, discover yourself. It was very trying and difficult because I just did not like who I was and who God created me to be. But I have come to know that I am fearfully and wonderfully made, and marvelous are the works of your hand, because my soul knoweth it right well. And God has done a great work in me, and I love God. I'm living for God, and I love who I am today.
Amen.
And that's a beautiful place to come to where you love who you are. And unfortunately, so many people still haven't come to that place,
Yes,
young and old. And
yes,
so that's beautiful. I love who I am today.
yes,
Amen.
yes, yes. If you don't love who you are, I encourage you to get to know Jesus. Give your life to God on today, because God desires to do a new thing in you, in your life, and through you. He did it for me. He will do it for you.
Amen.
Amen. And in your book, you even talked about you say love starved to true love. And
Mm,
so what do you mean by that? Because that's
yes,
important.
yes. So I did not have my father in my life. I met him like later. And as a teenager, if your father is not there, you begin to look for love in all the wrong places, trying to find that validation. But our validation is found in God. Our worth is found in God. It's not found in a man having a child, a job, or possessions. Our value and worth is found in our Creator.
What's amazing to me is how there are demonic assignments coming against us in our lives from a very young age. They study us to see where we're deficient, where we're lacking. What's it going to take for me to get under here and slide in?
Mm.
Or if there's an area, they offer us protection, they offer us strength. A corrupted form of it, but it's what it's offering us because that's where we're deficient. That's what we're lacking, and it's really important, man, that we have an upbringing that includes God because it's against it. You have to get up real early in the morning to go toe to toe with the enemy because he's sharp. But the Spirit is much sharper. We just need to be introduced to him at a very young age so that we have something back with. Because he starts in on us and he attacks us where it hurts.
Yes, absolutely. I was not raised in the church. I went like at 10th grade, but I'm a teenager. I ain't think about no God. So from the 10th grade to the 12th grade, went to church from time to time, went off to college, came back home after a couple of years with child. Like, okay, I'm doing what the sinners do, right? But some time went by, I had another child, and then I decided to take my behind back to the household of faith because life wasn't treating me so well. That's what we do, right? We run back home like the prodigal son, child I was. And when we are young, the enemy is like we're a prime target. He wants to get us when we're young. Some attacks come when you're in the uterus, right? I've heard stories about a baby being born with the umbilical cord wrapped around their neck. So the enemy, when the babies are young, that's why it is so important to raise them up in the faith. Don't just take them to church. Don't just drop them off to church, but be the church at home as well. Teach them how to have a relationship with God. I think that is missing too. We take our children to church on Sundays. They may go to Sunday school, come back home. Nothing's going on home about church. But to have that relationship, teaching them how to get up in the morning and say that prayer. Pray over them before they go off to school. Teach them how to pray and read and understand the word for themselves.
Good point.
Yes, it is so important to have that relationship with God. Yes.
Amen.
Yes.
Amen. Hi, Monique. Welcome. Glad you're here joining us. Amen. That's one thing that I try to, convey to my son over and over again. Is like, before mommy leaves this earth, I always tell you, there's one thing I want you to have. If you don't have nothing else, I want you to know God.
Yeah.
I want you to have a relationship with God because nothing else can save you, And so like that relationship is everything. And one thing that you said too, I know you talked about lies that you believed about yourself even after, but what about lies you believe about yourself before? Because even in your book, you touched something about how you could feel like you have a target on your back. Like once you have that insecurity, like the enemy and people, he could use people to sense out those who are insecure, who have low self-esteem, who don't know their worth, who are starving for love, right? And it seems like you attract the wrong kind of people, like you said, looking for love in all the wrong places. And so just the lies you believe, not only after the trauma, right? But the lies you believe about yourself before trauma even happens.
Right.
Because it's like there are so many children who don't get the love that they need from their mothers and their fathers. They don't get the nurturing. And you said something in your book that I could relate to. You said that you were the quiet one, and that was me. My
Yeah.
mother had 5 children, and they will always describe me when they talk about one of her kids, and they didn't know our names because she had 5. They will always say the quiet one, the quiet one, you know. And so, and just the decisions, that we make, like we sometimes we can bring trauma to ourselves when we don't know who we are, and we're starving for love and looking for love in all the wrong places because we didn't get it from home, believing that we're not good enough. Like I had that struggle too, believing that I was ugly, and scared of getting picked on, and like it's just so many lies that seem like they opens yourself up for the enemy to come, and now you start making crazy decisions, crazy choices, so that's interesting, the lies that we believe about ourselves.
Yes.